can start now. Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you guys for being here. I'm Cindy Lang. I'm from the Education Department, and today we're going to talk about universal design for learning. I have to use a mic. I'm recording this for posterity's sake, I think. So, yeah, it's funny. Yes, Rodney?
You don't have to worry. You don't have to ask for permission to finish early.
Okay.
Sure.
I got it, Rodney. It's funny how, when you teach one class and you're going to teach the same lesson, same thing happened to me yesterday, and I left there going, I felt like I missed the boat on a couple things, and I have revamped, and that's what we do as teachers. So hopefully, I don't know, go back to your colleagues and say, this was really good, even though Monday she might have blown it. I don't know. We'll see. So when we talk about this generation of students, I think we would all agree they're different, okay? They're distracted. They are easily frustrated. They are on their phones all the time. And we want them to be learners, and we want them to leave here as learners, and we want them to leave here with whatever God intends for them to do after Carson-Newman. But it's frustrating. And yesterday, I think I heard a lot of frustration, and it's like, what do we do? What do we do? How do I get them to read? How do I get them to do the things that they need to do to be those lifelong learners? And so UDL is a tool that had started at the pre-K to 12 level, but it is expanded to the higher ed. And I think it's something that we can all consider as we design our lessons. I wanted to first tell you, I know you're the expert on your field, and I am not. And so I know you do things really well, and I know you love what you do. And so otherwise you wouldn't be here. And so yes, these are ideas, but I'm not saying this is exactly how you should do things. But they're just things to consider, prayerfully consider, as we look at our students and what they need. Donovan Graham is a retired professor out of Covenant College, and he was one of my sister's professors in education. She's an elementary teacher in Knoxville, a private Christian school now. And he does professional development for the pre-K to 12 level, but I think it really applies for us in higher ed. And I'm not going to read these quotes to you. You can read them for yourself, but it's really talking about how we have received grace. And so we need to think about how we create an atmosphere of grace in our classroom. Does that mean we lose our academic rigor? No. But it does change how we view our students and how we view what we are presenting and helping them as we try to build them up and build them into those lifelong learners. And so I want us to keep that kind of in the back of our mind as we're talking about these things. And so, yes, it does take a little bit of humbling ourselves and stepping back and going, did I make that presented? Did I present that in a way where every learner in my classroom could access that? Did I help them understand it in the best way possible? So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as we talk today about UDL. I'm going to make you work just a little bit. So you've got some Post-its and Sharpie pens or markers. We all have joys. And we all have frustrations as professors. And so I want you to take a moment and on those Post-its, jot down, what are your greatest joys and what are your greatest frustrations? And there's 2 posters up here on the wall. And so once you've done that, go ahead and stick them up on the wall. I'll give you just a couple minutes to do that. Think about that. Joys, when students engage, students joking with me, getting excited, those light bulb moments, curiosity, laughter, love, passion, joy, questions. Call on me, I love that, right? Okay, and then when they're struggling and they get it. Yes, these are why we teach, absolutely. Frustrations, due dates and grading, not doing the work, failing to heed warnings, online searches, not matching course material. What's that mean?
Mathematics, they find a topic, they search it, and then completely different formula they don't understand pops up.
Yeah. And so what do we do? What do we do with these students? And I don't have easy answers, okay? But maybe just some thoughts. So before we get into those thoughts about what to do, here are just some current research about characteristics of these Gen Zers. There's a lot of good with where they are, but then there's a lot of negative. And I think our phone time and the social media accounts for a lot of that, in my personal opinion. And this is not just as a professor, but as a mom of kids that are this age. Their attention span, and I think ours is shrinking as well. 8 seconds, guys, 8 seconds. So if we don't have them engaged and thinking you've got something good to say within 8 seconds, they're like, okay, I'm all done. Very quickly.
It's less than that.
It could be. I know, when you count to 8, that's pretty long, isn't it? They are multimodal, so they click, they find things, they are easily bored, difficult to impress. I mean, all of these things I think are ringing true with all of us. If they don't find it relevant, they're not interested. They're like, whatever. I don't care what you have to say. I'm going to go back to my Facebook scrolling while you just go wah wah like the Peanuts, adults in the background. And so, what are our key takeaways from that? We need to actively involve them. It needs to be student-centered with the things that we are doing in the classroom. Group work for most, not everybody. I know there are some, and I was one of them. I still am. I don't always like group work because a lot of times I'm the one who says I'll do it all because it frustrates me when nobody does what they're supposed to do. Rodney's back there shaking his head in my department. He knows. And so you've always got those, but in general they do like group work. And I think one of the things that we have to consider is, what is real life? What is real world? When they leave Carson-Newman, when we're sitting here, we do things as a group. You don't, in general, do things on your own. And so teaching them the social skills necessary to work with others is pretty important. And I would think we've also taken a step back because of COVID, but also just because of the phones and the screen time. They are losing, and we've been talking about this in the education department, they are losing some of the general social skills that we used to all have. Just having a conversation with somebody, going and having coffee with them and carrying on a conversation with someone for 20 or 30 minutes is painful for some of them. And so working on providing that group work, I think, is really important. Okay, so now what? What do we do? UDL was actually Universal Design for Learning in 2008 in the Higher Education Act. It was included as a part of practices to consider to help students persist, engage, and succeed in higher learning. The goal, if you look at the highlighted, is to find a way into the learning experience, help them stay in it, remain persistent in the face of challenge and failure, okay? And then continue to build that self-knowledge and be those lifelong learners that we want them to be at Carson-Newman. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So UDL at a glance. It would help if I could sound that.
So let's say you're a teacher who needs to reach a curriculum goal, and you've got a diverse group of students. Well, so does this teacher. And this one. Most do. In fact, research shows that the way people learn is as unique as their fingerprints. What does this mean for teachers today? Classrooms are highly diverse, and curriculum needs to be designed from the start to meet this diversity. Universal Design for Learning is an approach to curriculum that minimizes barriers and maximizes learning for all students. For a better understanding, let's unpack the term Universal Design for Learning. First is the word universal. By universal, we mean curriculum that can be used and understood by everyone. Each learner in the classroom brings his or her own background, strengths, needs, and interests. Curriculum should provide genuine learning opportunities for each and every student, Now let's think of the word learning. Learning is not one thing. Neuroscience tells us that our brains have three broad networks. One for recognition, the what of learning. One for skills and strategies, the how of learning. One for caring and prioritizing, the why of learning. Students need to gain knowledge, skills, and enthusiasm for learning, and a curriculum needs to help them do all three. But every learner is unique, and one size does not fit all. So how do we make a curriculum that challenges and engages diverse learners? This is where the word design comes in. A universally designed building is planned to be flexible and accommodate for all kinds of users with and without disabilities. It turns out that if you design for those in the margins, your building turns out better for everyone. Curb cuts and ramps are used by people in wheelchairs, people with strollers, and people on bikes. Captioning on TV serves people who are deaf, people learning English, people in gyms, and spouses who get to sleep at different times. UDL takes this idea and applies it to the design of flexible curriculum. UDL goes beyond access because we need to build in support and challenge. So how do we use the UDL framework to make learning goals, methods, materials, and assessments that work for everyone? First, ask yourself, what is my goal? What do I want my students to know, do, and care about? Then ask, what barriers in the classroom might interfere with my diverse students' ability to reach these goals? To eliminate the barriers, use these three UDL principles to create flexible paths to learning so that each student can progress. Number 1, provide multiple means of representation. Present content and information in multiple media and provide varied supports. Use graphics and animation, highlight the critical features, activate background knowledge, and support vocabulary so students acquire the knowledge being taught. Number 2, provide multiple means for action and expression. Give students plenty of options for expressing what they know, and provide models, feedback, and supports for their different levels of proficiency. Number 3, provide multiple means of engagement. What fires up one student won't fire up another. Give students choices to fuel their interest and autonomy. Help them risk mistakes and learn from them. If they love learning, they'll persist through challenges. And remember, always keep in mind the learning goal. Get rid of barriers caused by the curriculum and instead keep the challenge where it belongs. And that's it. Okay, quick recap. Show the information in different ways, allow your students to approach learning tasks and demonstrate what they learn in different ways, and offer options that engage students and keep their interest. Universal design for learning equals learning opportunities for all. For more information about UDL, go to www.cast.org.
It's funny because she says, and that's all. And you're thinking, okay, wow, that's a lot of that's all. And I know that, and this is not something that you just do it. I know it takes time, but in the end, hopefully that ends up being less time in the long run as you design your lessons using universal design. So it's a set of principles that helps you develop your curriculum that gives everybody equal access. I want to clarify, and this is where I kind of derailed myself yesterday, this is not just for individuals with disabilities. And I think people hear it and they're like, oh yeah, well I know I've got to accommodate my students with disabilities. I would challenge you to think about not even those. It's those that are, so what are the students that we have in our classroom? What are their level of skill? Are they all on the same level? Are they all like really like doing awesome and they're making straight A's and they just love learning? No, not at all. And so it's those middle guys and that are a little bit lower that, and there are different reasons. And we also talked about this yesterday. Why are they the way they are? Are they lazy? That's what I hear. That's what I heard. And I don't necessarily believe that. I think it may come off as lazy, but I think it's a learned way to project not succeeding in school for a really long time, for a lot of them. I think it's also, they do need challenge. I do think this generation needs challenging in terms of, let's grow up a little bit. You do need to do some of this on your own. Pick yourself up, let's get your work done. So it's a fine balance, and I don't have an answer to it, but I do think it's recognizing it that it's a little bit of both. We also talked about yesterday, and this is also where we kind of got derailed, and I'm glad I have a representative from the English department because I wish I could pull them back in, because we were talking about reading and wanting them to read text. And is it the same if they are not reading it, if they're listening to it? So let me just ask you that. Is it the same? What do y'all think? Like if I want them to read Frankenstein. Yeah.
I think there are auditory learners and there are visual learners.
Yeah.
So auditory learners are going to start retaining things.
Yeah. Yes. Do we want them to be able to read text? Yes. Can they all do it well and like it? No. And it's just the way it is. Does that mean they shouldn't be challenged to be able to read the text? I don't think so. I think especially if you get to college, you should be able to read text. However, if you give them a little bit of success by listening to something and grasping it, maybe not as deeply as you would if you were reading the text, and getting them excited about it, and like having a little bit of success, it may and hopefully would challenge them to then go and be like, oh, well, I'm going to go back and I'm actually going to try to read that for myself. So it's kind of like deciding everybody is starting here, and your high achievers are going to be all the way over here, at the end of the semester. Some are they're going to be all along the spectrum, and if being okay with that and being okay with them accessing the material in different ways to at least try to move them along a little bit, Will they still maybe be the C student? Yeah. But if they're a little bit more excited about whatever subject you were teaching, I call that a win. And so the key point when you're looking at your lessons is, what is my goal? What is my goal for that day? So think just about something you're teaching this week. Somebody just tell me, what's on your curriculum? What's an objective for a class that you're teaching this week? Just throw anything out.
We're having a critique today on literacy posters, which is apropos.
It is apropos. Okay, so they're critiquing.
Yeah, it's like an interim critique. So we're gonna look on the computers and offer suggestions.
Okay, so they're analyzing the content of those literacy posters. Okay, it's a little bit hard because they do have to be able to read it. So
yeah, and there's two different audiences. They have to do two posters. One is for the audience of perhaps illiterate adults, and we define literacy broadly, not just being able to read, but being able to function on a computer, being able to use a phone, that kind of thing. And then read a medicine bottle.
Okay.
And then so they have to direct one poster towards that group of individuals, and then they have to direct the other poster towards the group that might be in a position to help the illiterate adult population.
Okay. And
so
are they
two different audiences?
Okay. Are they creating the posters or they're analyzing? They're creating them. Okay.
So they have to look at statistical information, do a lot of research. It's
Okay.
an upper level class.
Yeah.
This is a challenging project.
That is a challenging
It's
project.
late in the
However,
semester
I
because-
love how you're having them do something, not just write a paper. They're actually creating a visual
They also have to write.
poster.
They have to write a goal statement and a project description. And
Okay.
points it's due.
Okay. All right. I need another one. This one's too hard.
We're looking at the nutrient needs during pregnancy and lactation.
Okay. Nutrient needs during pregnancy and lactation. And how are they supposed to learn that?
So I do lecture, but then we also have mind tap assignments that we do in class together. So video on the placenta, and there's questions they answer.
Okay. Universal design. Y'all are like, maybe we don't even need to be talking about this because this is presenting the material in multiple ways. I would say so with the text that they are to read. Could they listen to it and get it? I mean, if they had an app that read the text for them, yes. And so your intent, and this is the example that I should have thought of yesterday. It's that the content of lactation for pregnant mothers, whatever the nutrients needed, you want them to get that concept. You're not teaching them to read. That's not the intent of your goal, okay? And so however they can access that material and then do what you need them to do, that's really what I want us to kind of switch our thinking a little bit in terms of, it doesn't matter how they access it, you want them to learn it. And so that's really UDL. Thinking in terms of, this is what I want them to learn today. However they might get to it, depending on the type of learner that they are, who cares? Do we want them to be good readers? Yes. And I know the English department, y'all have pages and pages that you want them to read for good reason. We want them to earn that liberal arts education. But I would say a lot of our students struggle with reading. They do. And we know that. And so if we can help them access the material, perhaps by listening to it, chunking it, teaching them. I think Sean O'Hare was talking yesterday. He said a lot of his students will say, I can read for 15 minutes and that's it. Okay, you can read for 15 minutes. Read for 15 minutes. Get up, walk around the block, sit back down and read for another 15 minutes. I mean, like teaching them those tools and strategies to persist. And so that's kind of the thoughts with UDL. So I want us to think for a second about your own material and your own content. So your representation, that's the first principle of UDL, the what. How do you present it? So there's a little cartoon, a little girl, and I think we all have people like this in our household who, let's assemble a microwave or let's install a dishwasher. And you have one person who's like, I'm going to read every word on all these instructions to make sure that I do this correctly. And another person's like, no, show me what it looks like and I'll get it done. Okay? So think for a moment, and I'm not putting posters on our tables because there's not enough space with all our salt and peppers and napkins, but use the Post-its and talk as a group. How do you present your material? And we've already got a couple examples that we've just talked about right now. How do you present? You've got people that are non-readers, and you do. Let them access the content and the comprehension, possibly through auditory. Some of them may not like it that way either, and then you gotta punt and try something else, but then go back and actually teach them, because yeah, I like that thought. And I'm speaking as a mom who has honors student drop out at Carson-Newman. He never finished the honors program, but he did graduate, but he just wasn't interested enough to keep with it. But he could make a straight A by looking at he can memorize reading at one time. It's easy for him. Sure. Maggie in the middle, who has to work hard, but academics are pretty easy for her. And then Gracie Lee, who's our freshman, and if she has to hear it to get it first. Then you could go back with her and have her then dive deeper into, okay, now I want you to actually read. Now you understand the characters, now you understand the plot. So trying to meet those that are kind of off on the bell curve on the lower side. So it's just, I know it's not easy. I know there was frustration yesterday as we were talking about it, because it was like, what do? We want them to read 100 pages in a text. They need to read it. So it's not an easy thing. Engagement, the why of learning. I think we've been talking about how we are engaging our students and wanting them to learn. We're passionate about our subject matter. That's why we teach it. You're going to have students that do not care. They just have to take your class and get through it. And so what do? The natural sciences is one of those. I don't know about y'all if you're advising undergrads and it's like we got to take 2 lab sciences or they got to take the math and they just got to get through it. And I would love us to have those science classes where they take it and they're like, this was cool, you know, and I think there are those, but I think you have to work harder at it because the subject matter is hard. It's harder for some of them. This is a fun little video. One second.
To build the Honda CR-V hybrid.
After 45 years, I'm just excited by this. I wasn't even more excited than I was in the beginning. Each semester, each year, I get a new crop of eager students. I'm glad I chose this career because I love going to work in the morning and I love being able to get all my students all pumped up. And I think if I'm excited about science, maybe they will be too. If I'm not having fun in class, then they won't be having any fun.
Okay, put it two more.
My name is Professor David Rice. I teach at Tidewater Community College. I've been there for 45 years. But I love physics. Woo!
Projectile motion, that's the physics, right? Two-dimensional motion with gravity. Yeah. All right.
Most of my students never had physics before. This is my first chance to take a kind of blank sheet of paper and make it a positive experience for them. So we do things like lying on a bed of nails, and then somebody stands on top of me while I'm lying on a bed of nails. The key is get them interested in the experiments, have them do the things that we're doing as opposed to just me doing. I can't let them do some things. They can lie on the bed of nails, but I don't stand on top of them. So my job is to get them involved in the demonstration, get them thinking about how it works in the real world.
Top of the first dose is just after the last dose, approximately 66 seconds. For how many of those seconds will you be out of your seat, close to weightlessness? 40. Yeah, 40 seconds. And then notice how long you're out of your seat during the ride.
We got so much positive response back from the viral videos. Lots and lots of positive response. I got emails and the messages that were on Twitter just about, I wish my teacher had been like this, and this is a great way to learn. That's made me feel really, really good, all the positive things they've had to say. And I'm hoping that will help people to see that science is not something to be feared, that they can really get into it and really is applicable and fun. Maybe I can inspire some teachers to get more involved with an active approach to teaching them and getting them really tied into the real world. Hoping it has a real positive effect upon the physics community and upon students and being more positive about getting into the sciences and not being afraid of it. So that is, to me, that's the best part about it. It's not that I'm famous, it's that students might get more excited about the sciences and teachers might get more excited about teaching them about the sciences.
We all wish we were that teacher. I know we can't always be that exciting, and you know, but it is an interesting thing when you're called to be a teacher. I think we are called to act in a sense on a stage. We want them to be excited, and you may have a day where you're not feeling excited, but you got to act like you are to pull them in. And isn't our goal to interest students in what we love? And if you can get them interested at those lower 100 and 200 level classes, then maybe they would continue. You never know. Maybe they might be the next PhD student in English or physics or math. So I think we've talked about ways you guys are engaging. And then the final piece of UDL is action and expression. How do they express to you what they know? How do you ask them to tell you what they know? That's just a little visual that I pulled off the internet of different ways. But just think for a second. Tests, papers, you know, and are there other ways you can have them do that? And I know it depends on your subject matter. It depends on what you're working towards. Our nursing department, I'm sorry, they've got to take boards. They need to do really well on those nursing exams, and so it's not necessarily that you can be that differentiated in terms of what you're asking a nursing student to do. But maybe in preparation for it, I know what they're physically doing things. You're having them, you know, and so what are other things that we could do for all of our subject matters to allow students to tell us what they know? Think about that for just a second. Let's just talk about it. I know we're getting close on time, and I told Rodney I would be fast. 4 more minutes. How about that? So what are ways that you have students express what they think? Really all I've got, if we go back to where we started with Donovan Graham and creating this atmosphere of grace, but at the same time maintaining academic rigor, I don't have an easy answer. I just know that's what we want to do here at Carson-Newman. And so considering that, and considering the ways that we present our material, considering how we challenge our students, it all plays a role. Any questions?